Hello dear friends, welcome back again. I hope all are enjoying the Christmas holidays. I wish you all a Merry Christmas. Stay tuned with me to the end. Let me start the family talk stories. Expecting my boyfriend to drive me crazy instead of going to work. I'm a 32-year-old woman working as a nurse in the ICU. My job is intense, 12-hour night shifts that leave me drained, emotionally and physically. But I've always been the kind of person who thrives under pressure, who takes pride in caring for others. My boyfriend, David, is 43 and has been my rock, or so I thought. Recently, we've hit a rough patch that made me question everything about our relationship. This story is about one particular night. A night that begun with great intentions but unraveled into an passionate whirlwind. It's a mix of love, give up, dissatisfaction, and self-reflection. And I'd like to share it with you, not just to vent but to see if anybody else has been through something comparable. David and I met a long time back at a mutual friend's dinner party. He was charming, witty, and had a calming presence that drew me in. Our connection was, and it didn't take long before we were inseparable. To begin with, our relationship felt like a romance novel. Candlelit dinners, long walks on the beach, and endless laughter. David was mindful and strong, especially as I explored the challenges of my requesting job. But things started to change a year back when he misplaced his work. Unemployment hit David hard. He'd always been pleased of his work and took his part as a provider genuinely. At first, I tried to be understanding. I picked up extra shifts to cover our costs and energized him to require his time finding something unused. But as the months dragged on, his motivation appeared to decrease. The man who once motivated me with his drive and determination now spent most of his days at home, scrolling through his phone or playing video diversions. Despite my dissatisfaction, I held on. I loved him and believed we might weather this storm together. But splits were beginning to show, which brings us to the night in question. It was gathered to be my day off. After working 3 successive night shifts, I was looking forward to an evening of relaxation with David. We had planned a cozy supper at home, followed by a movie marathon. But life had other plans. Around afternoon, I have gotten a frantic call from a colleague. They were short-staffed and desperate for somebody to cover the night shift. My first instinct was to say no. I was exhausted, and this was my one chance to rest. But then I thought about my group, the patients, and the truth that taking this shift would mean I'd have Boxing Day off to spend with David's family. After talking about it with him, we agreed it was the right thing to do. As the afternoon wore on, I have begun preparing for work. David appeared in good spirits, chatting about his brother's plans to go out for drinks. I didn't think much of it until he casually mentioned he'd be clearing out early to meet his brother. "Wait," I said, "you're not driving me to work." He looked at me, puzzled. "Why would I? You can drive yourself." I was shocked. David had always driven me to work after my night shifts because I was as well exhausted to get behind the wheel safely. I accepted he'd do the same this evening tonight, especially since we'd talked about how critical this shift was. "I need to rest some time recently my shift," I clarified. "If I drive, I'll be indeed more tired. Can't you drop me off and after that meet your brother?" He shrugged. "It's not a huge bargain. You will be fine." His aloofness struck a nerve. I attempted to remain calm as I explained how much I was juggling, working additional shifts to back us, sacrificing sleep to go to his family's gatherings, and presently, giving up my day off to assist a colleague. All I needed was for him to appear a small thought. But rather than understanding, he charged me of being egotistical. "You're choosing work over me," he said. "So why can't I select to spend time with my brother?" His words felt like a slap within to confront. "This isn't approximately choosing work over you," I shot back. "It's around supporting each other. I've been doing everything I can to keep us above water whereas you've been unemployed. The slightest you'll do is drive me to work." The argument raised, both of us throwing allegations and destructive words. At one point, I said something I regret. I can do everything else myself, so what's the point of being with you? David eventually offered to drive me, but it didn't feel like a gesture of love. It felt like a way to end the fight. Fine, he said, I'll take you. But you're being ridiculous. I told him not to bother. It's not approximately the ride, I said, tears gushing down my confront. It's almost how small you appear to care. I drove myself to work that night, my intellect hustling with questions and questions. Was I anticipating as well much? Or was this a sign that our relationship was disintegrating? As I worked through the night, recollections of our relationship played in my intellect. I thought of the early days when David would astonish me with blossoms after a long move or remain up late to listen about my day. I considered the guarantees we'd made to each other, to continuously have each other's backs, no matter what. But those memories were dominated by the show reality. I was carrying the weight of our life together while David appeared content to let me struggle. The man who once made me feel cherished now made me feel undetectable. Another morning, I came home to find David waiting for me. He looked tired, his eyes filled with regret. I'm sorry, he said. I've been so caught up in my own issues that I haven't been there for you. You deserve better. His apology felt sincere, but I couldn't ignore the nagging doubt in my heart. Could he really change, or were we stuck in a cycle of hurt and disappointment? Story 2. My girlfriend out about talking to the guy she cheated on me with at a party. I'm 32-year-old, and my girlfriend, let's call her Emily, she is 31-year-old. We've been together for 7 a long time. Those a long time weren't perfect, no relationship is, but we shared laughter, love, and plans for along the future. In any case, last year, everything came smashing down. A kiss, a disloyalty, and a breakup. It's something I've tried to move past, but some wounds don't heal effectively. It all started when Emily and I broke up for some of the months. Amid that time, she kissed another guy, let's call him Jake, and at that point rested with him. She demanded it wasn't cheating since we were actually broken up. I wasn't sure if I agreed, but I loved her and decided to donate us another shot. Small did I know, the echoes of that brief interval would frequent me. Emily and I met through common friends at a small coffee shop. She was attractive, the kind of individual who made a room brighter basically by strolling in. I was captivated by her mind and warmth, and our association felt easy. Over a long time, we built a life together, celebrating points of reference, sharing calm moments, and envisioning of long-standing time. But splits started forming. She had a requesting work that regularly left her focused and bad-tempered. I struggled to advance in my career, and budgetary strain started to weigh on me. We fought more frequently, in some cases over unimportant things, some of the time over deeper issues. Inevitably, the tension reached a breaking point, and we have chosen to take a break. Amid our time separated, I was crushed. I threw myself into work, attempting to divert myself from the loneliness. When Emily and I reconnected a few months afterward, she confessed to kissing Jake at a party and resting with him later. She guaranteed me it implied nothing which she needed to make things work with me. It wasn't easy, but I agreed to try again. Trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. I told myself that what happened during the breakup didn't define her or our relationship. Yet, a part of me couldn't shake the images of her with someone else. Fast forward to the holidays. Emily and I traveled back to our hometown to celebrate with family and friends. One of the traditions in our community is a big homecoming party, where everyone gathers to catch up and reminisce. I was excited to see old faces, but I couldn't shake a nagging feeling of unease. The party was energetic, filled with laughter, music, and the clinking of glasses. Emily appeared at ease, blending with people she hadn't seen in a long time. I stayed by her side to begin with, but as the evening wore on, I found myself talking to an old friend from school. When I looked for Emily later, she was outside, talking to a guy I didn't recognize. They appeared to share a simple camaraderie, and I have taken note of him bumming a cigarette from her. Something approximately the way he looked at me made my stomach churn. Interest chewed at me, but I didn't need to bounce to conclusions. When Emily returned interior, I casually inquired who she'd been talking to. She brushed it off, saying it was fair an associate of a companion. Her tone was light, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The another morning, as we arranged to take off for domestic, I have chosen to stand up to her. "Was that fellow you were talking to last night Jake?" I inquired, attempting to keep my voice consistent. She wavered for a minute, sometime recently conceding the truth. "Yes," she said, dodging my look. "But it's not a huge bargain. He did nothing wrong." Her words hit me like a punch to the intestine. Not a huge deal. How seemed she not see how humiliating it was for me to observe her talk to the fellow she'd rested with? How might she think it was okay to keep me in the dark? "You can't disregard him," I rehashed, my voice rising. "Emily, do you have got any thought how that creates me feel? Everybody at that party knew who he was but me. I had to figure it out since of the way he was looking at me. It's humiliating." She attempted to protect herself, saying she didn't need to create a scene which she didn't think it mattered. But her excuses as it were fueled my anger. "It's not just about what happened last night," I said. "It's almost regard. You should have told me. You should have let me decide how to handle it." The drive back was tense. I'd hoped for a few determinations, but instead, we sat in stony silence. At last, Emily broke the ice. "I'm sorry if I hurt you," she said softly. "That wasn't my intention." Her apology felt earnest, but it wasn't enough to erase the pain. "Do you even get it why I'm upset?" I asked, my voice heavy with feeling. She gestured. "I do. I should have told you. I just didn't think it would matter, but clearly, I was wrong." Within the days that taken after, I found myself questioning everything. Was I overreacting, or was this a sign of deeper issues in our relationship? I loved Emily, but love alone couldn't support us if we couldn't rebuild trust. Emily seemed genuinely remorseful and made an effort to reassure me of her commitment. She promised to be more transparent and to prioritize my feelings moving forward. I wanted to believe her, but I also knew that action spoke louder than words. Story 3. Wanting to leave my distant and unaffectionate boyfriend/baby daddy. I am 21-year-old woman and my boyfriend Mason was 23-year-old are in a long-distance relationship. We've been together for almost 2 years and recently welcomed a beautiful baby into the world. Mason lives in America, while I'm based in the UK. We met during a holiday in Florida, and what we had in the beginning felt like something out of a fairy tale. But now, I'm questioning if I'm wrong for wanting to walk away from a man who has grown distant, cold, and emotionally unavailable. When I first met Mason, he was everything I'd ever imagined of. Loving, affectionate, caring, and attentive. He had this attractive energy that drew me to him, and I felt just like the luckiest girl in the world. Mason would shock me with blossoms, arrange romantic dinners, and take me to places that made me feel alive. He always looked at me like I was the foremost lovely lady he'd ever seen. One of our favorite things was holding onto his arm as he crossed it over his chest. It was our small symbol of love and connection. Each moment with him felt extraordinary. It wasn't just the fantastic gestures, it was the way he'd touch my hand whereas driving, the way he'd incline in for a kiss each chance he got, and the way he made me feel seen, valued, and worshipped. When I left America after our hurricane month together, I was crushed but cheerful. We made a promise to keep the start alive despite the distance. For the first few months, we did. We talked each day, fell snoozing on the phone together most evenings, and shared endless conversations. It was exciting, and I really believed we were building something strong and enduring. At 2 months, Mason flew to the UK to meet my family. It was mysterious seeing him again. My parents revered him, and he showered me with affection. But after this visit, things started to change. Gradually, the day-by-day calls became less frequent. His eagerness melted away, and I found myself putting in more effort to keep the connection alive. When Mason finally came to visit me before the birth of our baby, I hoped it would reignite our bond. At first, it felt like it had. I remember the warmth in his smile and the way he kissed me when I picked him up from the airport. But the honeymoon phase didn't last. As the weeks passed, I noticed things that made me feel uneasy. The bricklayer would leave waste around the house, empty drink cans heaped up, and he wouldn't lift a finger to help clean. Being 9 months pregnant, I was exhausted, but didn't appear to notice or care. I'd be on my hands and knees cleaning while he sat on the love seat scrolling through his phone. When I asked for help, it always turned into an argument. "I'll do it later," or "I'm tired." I'd cry quietly at night, pondering why he wasn't venturing up. I was carrying his child, however I felt like I was carrying the complete weight of our relationship, as well. The man who once made me feel like a ruler presently made me feel undetectable. Presently that bricklayer is back once more, things have as it were gotten more awful. When I picked him up from the airplane terminal this time, there was no grin, no warmth. He scarcely looked at me, and the embrace felt obligatory. I attempted to brush it off, considering he could be tired, but the need of eagerness harmed more than I'd like to confess. Back domestic, Mason's mood got to be an unused issue. In case something wasn't to his enjoying, he'd snap. His tone was filled with inconvenience, in some cases outrage, and I couldn't get at what I had done to merit it. One night, after an especially harsh day, I went to bed feeling crushed. The bricklayer had snapped at me prior over something unimportant, and I couldn't shake the sting of his words. The another morning, he called me severe. Biting? I'm not bitter, I'm broken. Mason seldom makes a difference with the child. He'll observe her for some minutes sometime recently giving her back to me. Cooking, cleaning, and child rearing have all fallen on my shoulders. I'm exhausted, both physically and sincerely. I feel like a single mother with the included burden of a partner who doesn't care. Maybe the foremost agonizing portion is how undesirable I feel. Mason has kissed me twice in 3 weeks. Twice. I've continuously been sure in my appearance, and individuals have regularly complimented my magnificence. But presently, for the primary time, I feel revolting. Bricklayer doesn't be a tease with me, doesn't touch me unless he needs sex, and doesn't make me feel adored. Non-sexual physical touch is my best adored dialect, something I've told him over and over, but it appears to drop on hard of hearing ears. I've started to question everything. Am I not sufficient? Have I done something to push him away? Or has Mason essentially ceased adoring me? One evening, as I sat alone nursing the infant, Mason came and sat following to me. For a minute, it felt just like the ancient bricklayer was back. He kissed me on the brow and apologized for being removed. He guaranteed to do way better, to be more show, to appear me to adore I deserve. My heart throbbed with trust, but a little voice in my head whispered. The another day, things went back to the same cold schedule. The bricklayer scarcely talked to me, and the statement of regret felt like a far-off memory. I realized at that point that I was clinging to the past, to the man Mason utilized to be. I was holding on to a dream whereas the reality of our relationship was slipping through my fingers. I do not need to raise my child in a home where love fees conditional. I need her to see what a solid, cherishing relationship looks like. I want her to know that she deserves to be cherished, not tolerated. So, I've made up my intellect. It's time to let go. Breaking up with Mason doesn't mean I do not love him, it means I love myself and my daughter enough to walk away from something that's harming us. I'm scared of being a single mom, but I'm more terrified of staying in a relationship that makes me feel so small. I do not need to raise my child in a home where love feels conditional. Not only that, but I want her to see what a solid, loving relationship looks like. I want her to know that she deserves to be cherished, not tolerated. So, I've made up my mind. It's time to let go. Breaking up with Mason doesn't mean I don't love him, it means I love myself and my daughter enough to walk away from something that's hurting us. I'm terrified of being a single mom, but I'm more terrified of staying in a relationship that makes me feel so small. So, I wanting to leave Mason. For choosing myself and my daughter over a man who seems to have stopped caring. I'm scared, but deep down, I know the answer. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away.